to invite to the stage our chairman, Yossi Vardi, and the envoy of the Netherlands, Constantine van Orien. Is הוא פה? יש כאן מיקרופונים.
Technology. Right.
Good afternoon. Who had lunch already? Raise your hand. Only one person. Who didn't have lunch? So the statistics go like this. One person had lunch, 7 didn't have lunch.
And what did the rest do?
And the rest don't understand what's going on. Okay, so we need to know if we are stopping you from lunch with not a very good slot, or are we talking after lunch, which is a disastrous slot. So who had lunch? Raise your hand. Who didn't have lunch? Who is not planning to have lunch at all? Okay, so we are between you and the lunch. First of all, you know, we are a small country, very provincial from the Middle East. We are not well educated. We are not well brought up. You have to tell me how should I approach you before we go ahead.
Well, you're the godfather.
I'm not the godfather. You know, this lady is. She's doing a very cheap promotion.
Okay, so if you're the godfather, I'll be the godson then.
The godson. Should I approach you as the godson? Or?
Yes, let's do that.
No, should I call you Prince Constantine,
Whatever,
His Excellency, or?
Whatever you feel. No, Constantine is good.
Constantine is good. Yeah. But you are not Constantine, you are Prince, you know. We are very proud that you came here and now you...
We're many things.
You are many things.
So, call me whatever you want.
Okay.
But be polite.
It's against my grain, you know. It's very difficult for me. No, we are really delighted to have you here. This is not your first visit in Israel. This is your second or third, or,
yeah.
And you came here like a year ago also to explore what's going on here in the startup arena.
Well, I learned that you don't explore in Israel because you have to do business immediately. Every time you come into an office, people will tell you, well, we're fed up with innovation tourism. So I say, well, so you're fed up with me already? And said, no. They try to be polite then, but it's quite obvious that, you know, especially if you come here a second time, you have to come up with real propositions, real deals. Otherwise, time is too short.
And what did you hear about doing business with the Israelis?
Sorry?
What did you hear about doing business in the Israelis?
Well, I guess, one, Israel is prolific in so many different domains, also looking very much in going abroad. So, which is really interesting is how you take technologies and immediately look for the business opportunity. And the business opportunity always means going international. And that's really refreshing. And it's this kind of aggressive entrepreneurship, and it's something that we can learn from.
Okay, we are very happy to have you here. You know, really, the Israelis always had very warm feeling in their heart towards Netherlands because of the history and the way you people behaved during World War II. And also because both the Dutch people and the Israelis don't like to spend too much money, so this is another common denominator. So we feel really good alliance and good feeling with the...
Yeah, you know, the best thing is that compared to the Israelis, the Dutch are actually diplomatic and polite, and so everywhere in the world we're seen as rude, direct, and you know, and uneducated. But then you come to Israel, and you know, it's,
this was a general one, or it was aimed on me especially?
No, not aimed on you. I think you're a protagonist of, you're the godfather of all of this.
No Godfather, no Batich. Konstantin, can you tell us what is your current role in the startup space in Netherlands?
So Netherlands is a very, it's a mature, very pro-innovation economy. We're leading in all of the we're always in the top of most of the benchmarks. That doesn't mean that we are in all of the startup activity. So there's a lot of innovation within existing corporates. Our universities are all in the top 200 of world benchmarks. So in fact, we have a lot, and but it's actually turning that, the system where everything is really over-organized into a system that is more jumping on opportunities, that is growing companies much faster, as we are now at a time frame where technologies and capital and global markets come together, and those opportunities can be capitalized everywhere in the world. So even a country like the Netherlands that is relatively comfortable and with low urgency needs to understand that there's a big urgency here, and there's also very big strategic things happening, especially around AI, and that you need to be involved in those technologies. So what I'm doing with my team and basically all of the network in the Netherlands, we're pulling together what we're doing. We are connecting to international hubs. We are attracting foreign capital, and we're also making more transparent what's actually going on in the Netherlands.
That's good. So you are actually personally spearheading the public sector effort together with the private sector to push the startup ecosystem of the Netherlands.
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, nobody ever spearheads. So that's a bit different. It's going to all bottom up, and then we organize. So what I do is try to connect what is there and try to take us all to a higher level. But as I was trying to explain to someone today, I'm called the boegbeeld, which is it's a metaphor for this is a sculpture at the front of a sailing ship. Usually it's a kind of a topless lady, and she's kind of strung to the bow of a ship. And I always think it's a very uncomfortable metaphor, because you have a big ship behind you. I'm not a woman, a topless woman, and second, I don't want to have a big ship behind me, because I'm going to be the first one that's going to crash into the wall when the captain is not sailing. So what I try to be is more not just be the front of a big machinery, but to be a bit smarter, be kind of the captain of speedboats, and we have a number of speedboats, and try to accelerate there where there's a lot of positive energy, where people want to move forward. So that's working with universities, it's also working with government departments. But if a certain government department doesn't want to move fast, we basically ignore them and we start working with others.
In Israel, we think that a very important part of the ecosystem is not the formal things like startups or government offices or universities, but what we call the social glue, which connect together the players on a non-business level, on a voluntary level, where people are meeting with each other, get trust, educating each other, creating meetups, conferences, educating, teaching each other some skills, etc. To what extent this kind of part of the ecosystem exists in Netherlands and maybe a little bit in the rest of Europe?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, we're doing this great event next month, or it's already this month, 26th of September, called Angel Island. So we're going to take 500 investors, founders from basically all over Europe and beyond. We're going to put them on ships so that they have quality time together. Every ship has a theme. It can be AI, blockchain. So we're going to sail to the island where then you get the kind of cross-fertilization of all of these different backgrounds. So we do that, and we really believe that it's more about making real connections and relationships, and that they sustain, than it's about doing really big things, big conferences. So I think both have their function. I think what we want to do more is focus on building real relationships within the country, but also especially with those places where, like here in Tel Aviv, or we're very kind of supportive of Slush in Finland, because these are communities that are paying forward, and I think we can collaborate with them in a very productive way, and it's not always that transactional. I think we have to build this system together. And if you look at the global things, global scene, this whole tech community is still relatively small, but really powerful and growing really fast. So it is something, it's still a scene where people actually can work on a relationship basis, and that's what we're doing too.
Yeah, regarding your comment that the community is small, you know, actually the sad reality that the high-tech sector will always be just a limited percent of the total working force, you know, because you cannot employ the whole country in high-tech. You need some other profession as well. In Israel, we have a feeling that the number of employees in the high-tech sector is about 8%, which is small on the one hand, but it's one of the highest, if not the highest in the world. Do you have a feeling in Netherlands what percentage of the labor force is in high-tech?
Well, it's also a bit that's the statistics involved. So I think in Amsterdam they did some research, and they came up, I think it was 11% or something of the community was in high tech. So you see accumulations like in the south of the country. Eindhoven is all in high tech actually. So you see higher percentages, but then countrywide, services, agriculture, you know, these kind of sectors or logistics will take bigger percentages probably.
Now, can you share with you what is your feeling about startups in Europe vis-a-vis United States, vis-a-vis China? Where Europe stands in this thing?
Well, I don't know if you can generalize kind of the European startup, but I think you can. There is kind of an archetype of the startup in high tech, where especially when it's engineering driven, we tend to focus a lot on the technology development and not so much on the business. And you'll find investors that are not investing in the same way that you maybe find here or in the US, that are investing really on the growth of the business. And so you have a lot of push out of universities, you get proof of concepts, and then you get pilots, and the technology is developed further, and the question about where's your market and how are you going to scale this internationally comes relatively late, and maybe sometimes too late. So that's something I think we are learning across the board. I think you're seeing now, for instance, also what's happening in France, but Berlin has been a bit of a front runner, Stockholm, Paris, also Amsterdam. You're seeing that this is now changing, that we're adopting more of that kind of the more of the Israeli model.
Yeah, there is some kind of a revival in the major hubs in Western Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which this is good news. Any chances you see for more collaboration between Dutch companies and Israeli companies?
Yeah, so traditionally there's a lot of cooperation already happening. I think Philips has been here a long time. Actually today we're with a fund and they do the scouting for Shell. Booking.com just opened their office here. So there's a lot of bilateral contacts already. I think we were here these few days with a number of investors, and they've been kind of forging relationships with investors in Israel, so we can share deals and co-invest. So I think there's a lot going on, much more we can do, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah. How long? When did you arrive?
I arrived actually the day before yesterday.
Well, how long you are going to stay?
I'm going to leave tomorrow morning on a
so
really,
you remind me
ridiculously early flight.
You at what? How early?
We'll have to get up at 3:30.
So you are going in a very late flight. If you go really on early flight, you have to wake up at 1 a.m.
Well, if you know, it's because security takes so long in the airport.
Tell me how the security treat a prince.
So what?
How the security treats a prince?
Well, not much better than everybody else.
And you are not offended?
No, I mean they do their job. I think security can be really stupid, and that offends me. So you somehow when security can be really bureaucratic, and then but that's not because I'm who I am, but it's just because I think they're not really doing a good security job, but they are holding you up for 20 minutes asking ridiculous questions. But if they do a thorough job, I mean we're all more safe. Well, that's fine with me.
Who asks more stupid questions, the security or me?
You never question the Godfather's wisdom. Yeah.
So you are going to be here 3 days, practically, which remind me the story about the guy who came to the security and they asked him how long you are going to be in Israel. He said 3 days. And they asked him, what are you going to do in the 3 days? He said, I'm going to write a book about Israel. And they told him, in 3 days, a book about Israel? He said, yes, yes. They asked him, what is the name of the book? He said, Israel, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Yeah. Is that the first time you used that one?
No, I must make a confession. You know, I have 7 jokes. And I recycle them. I made a whole career just recycling.
So you have the Israeli joke, or the Yossi Vardi joke book, written in how many days?
No, I remember them, and I all the time when I talk with you, I'm just looking for the opportunity to take one of my jokes and to plug them in a way that it will look like very spontaneous, you know. And so thank you for inviting me to this wonderful trip on September 26th, right?
Yeah.
I will be there to make sure that whatever you told here, it's really coming into being.
And you do kite surfing to the island?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to go kite surfing to the island?
Kite surfing. Me kite surfing.
Yeah.
You know what will happen to the kite if I...
Wow, that's maybe an innovation. Yeah.
Though my son always said that I'm not heavyweight, he said I'm just too short for my weight.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're vertically challenged.
I'm left with another 5 jokes, you know, because I already too.
No, why don't you just throw them out here? No, maybe that's. You know.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the Netherlands. Do you have any idea what is the number of startups in Netherlands?
Yeah, around 5,000.
5,000. Yeah, this is we think we have 6,000. 5,000 is not. No. It's a nice number. Though it's like the number of startup in one Chinese city.
Yeah,
you know?
Or an office block, probably. Yeah.
Pardon?
In one Chinese office block.
Yeah. Yeah. So they always say they have like 6,000 startups in a city. But as we discussed, you know, as we rehearsed this spontaneous talk, the common thing to Netherlands and Israel that both Israel and Netherlands together with China represent 20% of the world population.
I know, we're really important. Yeah. That was joke number 3. Very soon we are going to finish the discussion because of lack of more jokes. Yep. So you have 6,000 startups. How do you see the trend in the Netherlands, in the growing? So we're seeing a lot of, obviously in the traditional areas like fintech, there's a lot going on, and a lot in blockchain and AI. I think the challenge will be talent, as we have now such a shortage of labor that the big industry is actually paying massive salaries.
Are you talking about Israel or Netherlands?
Now I'm talking the Netherlands. So I don't know how that is in Israel.
Same thing.
But the challenge really is how to get talent to go into an entrepreneurial career when basically everything is taken care for already. So why would you not take a 6,000 euro and a lease car job? I know the last panel said lease cars are no longer relevant, but actually they tend to still be. And actually throw that all away to go and start your own career, and that's difficult. So and it's not a really strong argument. You know, we can't go out there and say, you know, don't take that jobs. You know, these companies are all fighting for talent too, and especially the tech talent is very in short supply everywhere. But it's through the whole economy. I mean, if you drive in the Netherlands, you see looking for colleagues, and then it could be cooks. It's basically across in logistics everywhere. We have this shortage now, and so the story is quite hard to tell. That you need more people going in.
You know, in this country, we face the very same situation that the big American companies are coming and kind of sucking all the talent. Here, we always say that. The solution, one of the solutions, you know, the potential solution is to take sectors which right now are not very active in the high tech, like ultra-Orthodox and Arab Israelis, and to use them, to train them, and to get them into the labor force. And if we do it, we achieve two things in the same thing. One, we increase the inclusion, which is very, 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 very important. Number two, we open more jobs. Do you have such an opportunity? I don't mean Bedouins in Netherlands, but do you have such similar opportunities in Netherlands?
Yeah, so we have some of those programs, but bringing actually it's one of the pitches I make when I'm talking to our government is saying, well, this is not just for the white male elite. This is actually it's actually an opportunity to bring coding to school, entrepreneurship to schools, where there are people that have much less opportunities in the traditional labor market because of their background or because they don't have the networks and this is I think it's also very important for the whole story around tech that it does become inclusive. If it just becomes more wealth to the wealthy and more opportunities to the ones that have all the opportunities, eventually this will kind of undermine the effort. And I think it is it's such a strong sell because everywhere in the world now you can basically set up a company. So the opportunities have never been greater than today, and it's really up to us to make sure that a much larger slice of the population that has the talent actually has the opportunities.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and definitely one of the prices we pay for the success of the high tech, that is increase the gaps between those who have and those who don't have, and as you say, if we don't find a solution to it, we will see more things like Brexit and other phenomena where the people which feel this franchise are going to express their unhappiness, to put it mildly. Unfortunately, the time is running very fast and we cannot stop the watch. But before we finish this session, I would like to give, if you are willing, to answer one or two questions from the audience.
Yeah,
are you willing to take your chances? These guys are very impolite and they like to be provocative. Anyone for a question? Maurizio, you have to ask a question. You raise your hand. You just want to pass the microphone. Okay. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Ajay. I'm Indian, so I'm very polite. I was at Rotterdam a few months ago when you spoke about the Dutch startup ecosystem, and I'll be at the Amsterdam Capital Week next week. And you talked at that time about, even in a country like Holland, how fragmented all the different efforts were. Different universities and different regions were competing with each other in trying to attract startups from a very limited pool. But if you just look at the startup ecosystem, not just in Holland, but in Europe, and then you look at Israel, very close geographical proximity, it looks even more fragmented. So I'm looking to start something, and I've spent some time in Berlin, Holland. It's my 4th visit to Israel. Isn't it a bit of an oxymoron that the companies or the startups which are supposed to connect everything, they are in an ecosystem where everything is so disconnected and so fragmented? And what is it that champions like yourselves can do to create an ecosystem where startups don't really have to spend so much time on the road, spend so much time discovering, finding things, and life is a little bit easier for them to be a part of this, to do what they really want to do and what they are meant to do. Yeah. Thank you.
So actually, some of the feedback we're getting from accomplished entrepreneurs is that life is much too good for entrepreneurs. They are pampered too much. And it's not, I went yesterday we were in a pitch session here in Israel, and that's the tone is very different. People are very tough on entrepreneurs. If the presentation is crap, they will tell you immediately, and they will, and they will kind of hammer you down. we may be too polite for people. So this whole thing that we are pampering startups and entrepreneurs, yes, I agree that we need to remove barriers that are completely useless, that are overly bureaucratic and those things. But too much pampering might also not create the best entrepreneurs. So what we do, I mean, we do reach out, I think, to places like Berlin, and as I said, we collaborate with Slush and with other places, because we do believe that it's still a relationship business, and you need to reach out, know the people, especially when you're looking for investors and stuff. So that we can facilitate. At a systems level, I just say, well, Europe is fragmented because we have different languages, we have different cultures. That's also, if you know how to master that, that can actually be your advantage. It can be also a barrier to entry for people that haven't, like Booking.com or other, Spotify. They went from market to market to market. And once you've done that, then actually you have actually quite a runway in front of you. So you can actually change the disadvantage into an advantage. And I think if especially from a government perspective, you want to organize all this, I think we're making a mistake, because we will add a lot of bureaucracy, we'll create processes that with all the best intentions might not deliver the best possible outcome for the entrepreneurs. But well, I'm sorry, that's a bit long answer, but and finding the balance between the two, and we actually discussed this before, what the actual role of government is for me still a big question. Many initiatives of government have been very well intended, but had very poor outcomes, and even sometimes negative consequences. So you have to be, as a government, very humble and very strategic at the same time. And often we see the opposite. We see big stories and not a very strategic approach, which leads to a lot of confusion and not much benefit for the actual entrepreneurs.
President Konstantin, we could have continued on and on. The audience is still very engaged. People are not leaving, which is amazing. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon with 35 degrees centigrade. So, but unfortunately we have to leave the stage, or otherwise this very bad lady will bring the security people to remove us.
No. But that would take long. If the security people come, then we can sit here for another half an hour.
So thank you very much, and I hope you will be able also to interact with the people a little bit, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Konstantin Van Arnier.